Something unusual occurred within NASCAR, and it did not take place during active competition. It was not a crash or a last-lap pass. It was a protest. During a live race weekend, a driver made a deliberate decision that shifted attention away from performance and toward a broader issue within the sport. The action was visible, intentional, and immediately disruptive to the expected order. This was not an isolated emotional response. It reflected underlying tensions that had been developing over time, linked to rule enforcement, decision-making processes, and internal disagreements. The significance of the moment lies less in the act itself and more in its implications. It raised questions about authority, trust, and the relationship between drivers and officials. The central issue is no longer limited to what occurred in that moment, but how it will influence the sport going forward. It took place during what was expected to be a standard race weekend. Pre-race procedures were underway and conditions appeared routine. Shortly before the start, one driver departed from established expectations. The deviation was captured on broadcast, creating immediate uncertainty among commentators and teams. There was no mechanical failure or imposed penalty. The action was intentional. Reports indicated the driver was responding to a recent decision by NASCAR officials, one that had generated concern among multiple competitors. While such concerns had previously remained internal, this instance brought them into public view. Reactions followed quickly. Some observers expressed surprise, while others interpreted the move as a response to unresolved issues within the sport. Officials were required to respond in real time to an unanticipated situation. The incident disrupted the usual control associated with race operations and shifted attention toward broader institutional concerns. The driver involved is not an unfamiliar or marginal figure within NASCAR. They have established a reputation based on consistency, discipline, and adherence to professional standards. Their record does not reflect a pattern of disruptive behavior or public confrontation. This context shaped the reaction to the incident. Actions taken by individuals with established credibility tend to carry greater weight, particularly when they depart from expected conduct. This was not an attempt to gain attention or recover relevance. It was a visible departure from a previously consistent approach. Within the garage environment, the driver had raised concerns through internal channels. Discussions had taken place, and issues had been addressed in accordance with standard procedures. Over time, confidence in those processes appears to have declined. Specific decisions were viewed as insufficiently explained or inconsistently applied. The gap between competitors and officials became more apparent. Publicly challenging the system is not typical within NASCAR. This instance marked a departure from that norm and introduced a broader question regarding whether similar concerns are shared more widely among drivers. The protest followed a period of accumulating dissatisfaction. Concerns initially centered on rule interpretation and enforcement. Individual decisions appeared minor in isolation, but carried measurable consequences for race outcomes. Questions arose regarding consistency and transparency. A recent ruling became a focal point. While enforcement of rules is expected, the manner of enforcement drew criticism. Some teams perceived unequal treatment, while others focused on the lack of clear explanation. For drivers, the issue extended beyond individual calls to the reliability of the system as a whole. Confidence in consistent application is essential in a sport defined by precision. Internal discussions had already taken place. Drivers and teams raised concerns through established channels, and meetings were held. The outcome of those discussions did not produce sufficient change to resolve the underlying issues. At that stage, continued silence implied acceptance. The protest represented a calculated decision following sustained pressure. It marked a transition from internal disagreement to public expression. Once the issue became visible, it moved beyond internal management and entered broader scrutiny. The incident reflected broader structural concerns within NASCAR. The sport operates under a centralized system of authority, where decisions are typically not challenged in public. This structure supports consistency in presentation, but can limit open feedback. A primary concern is the consistency of rule enforcement. When comparable situations result in different outcomes, it introduces uncertainty. For teams and drivers, this affects both preparation and execution. Communication is another factor. Feedback is often perceived as one-directional, with decisions communicated rather than discussed. Over time, this dynamic can reduce trust between competitors and officials. Control over the sport's narrative has historically been maintained through internal processes. In the current environment, with widespread media coverage and immediate dissemination of information, maintaining that control has become more difficult. Incidents that previously remained internal are now subject to public analysis. The protest did not focus solely on a single decision. It brought attention to the structure through which decisions are made and communicated. Public scrutiny of that structure introduces broader questions that extend beyond the initial event. The response developed rapidly. Footage of the incident circulated widely, prompting analysis from media and commentators. The discussion expanded from the specific act to the issues it represented. Within the garage, responses varied. Some drivers avoided direct comment, reflecting the potential consequences of public criticism. Others acknowledged similar concerns, referencing consistency and clarity without directly endorsing the protest. This indicated that the issue was not limited to a single individual. Public reaction was divided. Some viewed the action as a necessary expression of concern, while others considered it inconsistent with the sport's emphasis on order and discipline. NASCAR's official response emphasized stability and the integrity of competition. Statements remained measured and did not directly address all underlying concerns. This approach maintained control of messaging but did not resolve the broader discussion. The focus shifted from the incident itself to the adequacy of the response and its implications for future governance. The implications extend beyond a single event. Drivers and teams are now observing how the situation is handled. The response will influence whether similar concerns are expressed publicly or remain internal. If underlying issues remain unaddressed, dissatisfaction may persist. This does not require coordinated action to have an impact. Gradual shifts in trust and cooperation can affect the overall environment. There are also external considerations. Sponsors, broadcasters, and audiences expect consistency and credibility. Ongoing controversy can affect perceptions of fairness and stability. The central issue is trust in the system. That trust is most visible when it is challenged. NASCAR's response will determine whether the situation leads to adjustment or reinforces existing structures. The outcome will shape how similar issues are addressed in the future and may influence the balance between authority and accountability within the sport. This event marked a visible point in an ongoing process. It highlighted existing tensions between governance and competition, and between established authority and participant trust. Motorsport depends on confidence in consistent rules and equal conditions. When that confidence is questioned, the effects extend beyond individual outcomes. The current situation presents a decision point. The direction taken will depend on how the issues raised are addressed. The significance of the moment lies in its potential to influence future expectations, both within the sport and among those who follow it.